If we saw the matrix, we know what they're saying here, don't we? And this is the important bit. Welcome to the desert of the real. There he goes. And he says, this is reality. And so if you remember the Matrix, he said, welcome to the desert of the real. And if you read Baudrillard's work, that's what Baudrillard says as well. Welcome to the desert of the real. So I guess one of the problems with the digital paradigm, as good as it is that we have what we call hyper-reality. And in hyper-reality, we have not simulations representing reality, not the map being a copy of the territory, but simulations referencing simulations. And reality is over there in the corner somewhere. This causes us to lose reference points because the analog physical object isn't there at the time of producing knowledge. It results in a loss of meaning and value. And Baudrillard calls it the spectacle of nonsense, where anything can mean anything. Okay, and that results in a profound meaninglessness. And it was interesting because the conference promotional material says is devoid of meaning even against the nature of humanity. And I think that's exactly what Baudrillard is trying to say to us. So the problem, in one respect, is the problem of too much information. Even if you go on YouTube and you see the one on the left-hand side there, it's called InfoWars. Alex Jones, and he produces these videos and he tries to tell us, don't listen to the mainstream media because I'm going to give you the truth. In reality, he's just adding to the mountain of information that we have. And that's the problem which Baudrillard actually sees. So even when you have the anti-media out there, they're not helping the problem. Baudrillard's argument is that we have excess information, and that is the fundamental problem of our time. Baudrillard offers three theories for the relationship between information and society. In his first theory, he says that information produces meaning, but because of the loss of signification, in other words, because of the loss of our relationship with the real world physical object, we lose signification. The media knows this, and it tries to pour in more and more and more information to keep the society informed. But the paradox is that that simply intensifies the failure of signification in the first place. So we're locked in this vicious cycle. He has a second argument, and that is that there is information that functions like a code and that meaning's elsewhere, but he doesn't believe that. He's only put it there to balance the equation. The third argument is that there is an explicit relationship between information and meaning, and that information is in fact destructive of meaning and signification, which is the opposite of the modern belief that societies need more and more and more information. He says the reality is the opposite. And for Baudrillard, this new information paradigm is not natural. It's not people speaking to each other. It's the result of staged meaning advertisements on TV to get our interest in watching things. It's performative. It takes a huge amount of energy and resources, national power systems and so on. And when television programs are trying to say this is reality, as in reality TV, we can be fairly certain that reality, whatever it was lost a long time ago. Because if you're living in reality, people don't have to tell you that you're living in reality. Okay, one of these problems is the problem of total transparency. And I guess that's fairly obvious. We've had some really big incidents recently with Julian Assange from Australia and Edward Snowden from the United States. But that's not what Baudrillard is telling us about. That's reasonably simplistic. What Baudrillard is saying is that no, we haven't always communicated because the Speech Act is now operationalised. It's not natural. And so we talk about communication in terms of speed. We talk about it in terms of efficiency and volume. And we measure it. And none of these things occurred when people spoke to each other at an earlier point in history. So he says, yes, we communicate, but communication is a fundamentally different order of things as opposed to pre-modern world. And if you think that, okay, well, I saw the Matrix and this is all different, Baudrillard can't be right because I don't have this thing plugged into the back of my head. Well, I would suggest that the Matrix did that because if the Matrix actually used wireless technology like we do, it wouldn't have looked very good in the movie. Okay? So Baudrillard's saying, no, the issue is not whether you have something plugged into your head. It's much more insidious than that. So if you are familiar with Plato and his allegory of the cave, Plato said 2,500 years ago, he said, let's imagine something. Let's imagine a group of people who were born in a cave, they've never been outside, they grow up, they're looking at the wall of the cave right there, and from time to time people come in the back and there's a fire between them and the people and they hold up these objects and the shadow goes on to the front of the cave. The people who've never been outside are going to believe that those shadows are reality. They don't know any different. And so Baudrillard is saying that what we have in the digital paradigm is really like Plato's cave. And he says this challenges our relationship with the self and others with whom we are cerebrally disconnected in the process of communication or commutation, as Baudrillard puts it. So this is all about where the mind is and how we get knowledge and how we communicate without having something in the back of our head, as the Matrix actually says. So the problem is that communication is not natural, it's mediatised. In other words, it has something in the middle. Modern communication is always a communication through something or with something to get to the other side. So we interact without touching in the digital world. We interlocute without actually speaking to each other. And we interface without seeing. The other problem is self-referentiality. And I went for a walk yesterday around Prambanan and I saw all these people with the selfie sticks. Everywhere, okay? This is the digital paradigm in reality. Okay. Baudrillard talks about liberty as well. And his argument is if liberty or freedom is based on this notion of the individual who creates reality, creates their life, has control over their representation, has control over their own life story, then how can liberty exist in a system where mass media communication can construct any story they want about you. You don't even own your own story anymore. He also looks at the fact that human cognitive capacity is offloaded to machines, to computers. And so he asks, where is the human being in all of this? What remains of humanity? He also looks at the difference between the screen and the mirror, that thing that mediates in between. And the difference is that the mirror always allows for separability or transcendence. With a mirror, you can get to the other side. With the computer screen, you can't. And so what we end up with is a cerebral connection to the rest of the world. The other difference here is the deception of distance. The object in the mirror always looks further away than it really is, but in reality is always close. The object on the computer screen always looks really close, but in reality, it could be someone on the other side of the planet. It's a fundamental difference there in the digital paradigm. And so, I'm not an artist, but this is a really good example that Baudrillard's talking about, and he talks about abstraction, where we produce knowledge through abstraction. Now, this here is an example of abstract art, and to me, it means nothing. Absolutely nothing. And this is what Baudrillard is saying, that we have the problem of abstraction. We can't tell what these things are supposed to mean. So this leads to profound uncertainty and confusion based on a quantic logic. And a really good example of this is data, big data, analytics, and so on. And so what we have is no longer a society, but what Baudrillard refers to as the masses. And these are the product of systematic data collection, polls, tests, surveys, and all those sorts of things. But the question is, do they really tell us something about the humanity of society? And the problem is, in the modern world, we think we need to have more and more data and more data, but it only intensifies the logic of abstraction, removes us further away from the thing that we're trying to understand. And an aleatory system is based on that quantic logic. It's a system which uses data to predict every single possibility up to the point of being preemptive. But the problem is that even though you try to generate as much data as you can, you will never be able to preempt and predict and account for everything. And if we reference the matrix again, the problem in the matrix was the systemic anomaly. And the architect of the matrix couldn't figure it out. Why? Something wasn't working time and time and time again. So Neo was the systemic anomaly of an aleatory system. Okay, how might this end? The problem, as we've heard, is for Baudrillard simply too much data, too much information, massive amounts of it being generated day and day and day. And Baudrillard thinks, well, maybe that's one way the world is going to change. Where do we get to beyond the digital paradigm? And one of his views is that things aren't going to change by using the tools of the second order of simulacra, which is the industrial era, the explosive era. Baudrillard's argument is that the system may collapse under its own weight. And you see with buildings, they destroy them by, they go down, they don't go out like that. So, in the end, what does Baudrillard give us? As somebody who works in education, who works in ICT and in philosophy, what does Baudrillard give us? Well, I think that Baudrillard can tell us a little bit about the nature of our current system, one which is so ubiquitous that we often take it for granted. I think he allows for an account of the impact of this system upon society and individuals. He identifies how the system might be subverted or changed. He identifies who might be associated with that process. And he identifies how it might ultimately end. And so, for me, I'm putting Baudrillard's work, or thesis, to work. And my area of research is about computer hacking. Exactly. Because computer hackers are the problem that the digital system generates. The system generates its own problems. And so that's a very, very interesting space for me. And what is the relationship of information to the system with computer hacking? And I've been doing a little bit of research on Indonesian computer hackers as well. Because Indonesia is a place where, like everywhere else, there are computer hackers. And so we get groups like this. And they produce nice graphics, I must admit. They produce nice graphics. And if you ever get the time while you're browsing on web, go to the Norse website there, and the URL is there. And this website provides a real-time update on the hacking incidents as they occur. And you will see these flashes of light going off between the countries in the world. Most of the traffic, I'd have to say, is between China and the United States. And sometimes you'll see these huge bursts, and it seems to be very, very coordinated and planned hacks on each other's countries. But that's just a snapshot, and you can certainly go and have a look at all that later on. Okay, some people are probably saying, yes, okay, there's a lot of, I'm going to, real quickly, Baudrillard, he's dreaming too much, he's lost in the world of the matrix and all of this sort of stuff. And it's really important that when you use someone's social theory, that you don't accept it 100%. And that's what I do. So there are some limitations that Baudrillard has. In fact, there's a whole list of them. Okay, so it's not a matter of simply saying, I've read Baudrillard, and Baudrillard's going to answer every question in the world, because that would be just very bad research. Okay, so you need to be aware of the limitations, and Baudrillard has a few limitations. So, to end this presentation, I think we can use Baudrillard to critique ICT in education. We might be able to use Baudrillard for an analysis of the media and freedom. We could use Baudrillard to critique big data and analytics. We could also look at Baudrillard from a health nursing perspective in terms of the relationship between the digital paradigm and mental health. And of course, as I've spoken about this morning, I think it is very, very timely and useful to reflect upon what Baudrillard has to say about the relationship between science, technologies and humanities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Lawrence Tamatea, right. That is becoming more interesting because Professor Lawrence discussing about too much information, about mountain information, and Professor Mustafa discussing about limited information or incomplete information. So if you lack of information, just ask him. He will give mountain of information then. About simulation versus reality is becoming more interesting. And now we come into the question and answer session. I would like to offer 3 questioners in the first round then. Okay, First one from Pak Gunawan. The second from, okay, I have 1, 2, 3. Please state your name and your affiliation, and then to which speaker you want to give questions. Please, Pak Gunawan. There is a microphone provided.
Okay, thank you very much for time and opportunity. I would like a question. The first one to Professor Lawrence. It's very interesting presentation, yeah? And I think it's a real problem for us in the digital era. You have presented about the matrix, yeah? The matrix is like basically they have different life. They have real life, and then sometimes they can go to different, yeah, in the digital, maybe a digital situation, something like that. But in our community now, I think most of the digital era is social media and maybe online games, yeah. And in our community, especially in the Western society, who already have no problem with primary needs such eating and then housing and education, yeah. So that one could be problem, yes, yeah. But like in Africa, when people have difficulty with housing, something like that, and then to get housing, eating as well, I think the digital thing is not problem there. Okay, yeah. So my question is, in this world, yeah, do people has like balance to see the digital era? Because you know that in some part of the earth, this is not problem at all, but in another earth could be problem, yeah. So how we can make the balance view, and then to get the like recipe to get how to handle this problem, yeah, especially if in the Western countries becoming addicted with the social media and online gaming, something like that, yeah. And maybe the second question is, do you think the matrix will happen in the real life, or it's just only science film, something like that, yeah? And maybe the third question for Professor Mustafa. I'm interested with big data, actually, and I know Malaysia is working hard to do research in big data, yeah, to mining the social media information, something like that, yeah. Do you think like big data can give a benefit, because in the government now we have open data communities, right? Starting from maybe in Europe they have open data, like in UK they have opendata.gov.uk, I think, or something like that, yeah. In Indonesia, in Malaysia, in the developing country, they want to create open data. It's like every data available in the website, okay, yeah. But it's like the problem, the open data sometimes is too much data as well, so we cannot have conclusion at all about what we are reading about this data, okay. So what the future of big data, and also the future of open data in this world, yeah. I mean, can you give some maybe your prediction or your understanding about two things, big data and open data in this case? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, that was Pak Gunawan from Universitas Muhammadiyah Surakarta. The first question for Professor Lawrence, I think it's better to directly answer, and then the second will be Prof. Mustafa. Please continue.
Thank you for your question. Look, I think you raised some very good points, and one of those is, I guess, our priorities in education in particular. So I think in some context, in some developing context, there is certainly a greater emphasis upon more of the basic humanitarian needs, then the provision of high-end laptops and iPads and things like that. And I'm actually working on a little bit of a project now precisely around that sort of thing. So that's a really important thing. I think the second thing is in relation to developing context and in relation to what Baudrillard is talking about. What he is saying is that it's very hard to tell the difference between reality and a fake or a copy. And I think you may be aware of the emails that come from African countries, from developing countries, that are saying, well, someone in your family passed away and they've left $1 million to you and things like that. So there's a really good example of how ICT is in fact already in developing countries, and it gives rise to the dilemma about we can't tell whether it's real or fake. So I think that's a really important thing there. The third question is are we in a matrix now? No. I think everyone's pretty happy to hear that. But the answer is no. And Baudrillard's argument says that we are in a transition stage where we still rely upon analogue world machines, but increasingly those machines are enabled, and their value and their capacity is enabled by programming. Okay. So I was reading about one of the US planes, the F-35, and to make this plane fly, a team had to develop a program, and there are 10 million lines of code in that program. So we're at this transition stage where we still have 1 foot in the analogue world, but 1 foot in the digital world as well. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Professor Mustafa, please.
Okay, thank you, Pak Gunawan. As far as big data is concerned, not only Malaysia and Indonesia have problems, but also all countries are having problems with big data, especially on the analysis of the so-called big data. When it is an open data community is in place, definitely there are so many data, so huge data will come in, and therefore it's very difficult to manage, right? Especially on the getting or obtain the information or knowledge from this kind of big data. So how do we do that? I give you a simple suggestion, but you can explore on it. One of which is through partitioning. So how do we do that? That is our challenge, actually. If you can come up with a new partitioning theory whereby the data can easily sustain and it becomes smaller and easy to process, because we have a limited capacity of processors, right? Not all countries have the so-called very superpower machine. Only certain countries like NASA, because NASA has more than 3,600 CPUs running concurrently right now. More than 6,000, more than 3,600 CPUs running concurrently, which I believe in Indonesia, for the government, I don't think you have more than 100 CPUs running concurrently. But how to manage the big data? There must be a way of doing that, one of which is through partitioning. That is, we left to you. Let's study on it, let's do research on it. What kind of the partitioning technique that we require in order to manage this kind of information. Hopefully, within a very short time, 1 or 2 years' time, we might get this kind of approach in order to manage this kind of the so-called big data issues. I think that's it.
Okay.
Am I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Mustafa, and thank you, Pak Gunawan, for the question. Is that okay, Pak Gun? Okay, yeah. We proceed to the second question from that lady. Please state your name and your affiliation and to which speaker you want to give the question.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sri Slamet. I'm from Muhammadiyah University of
Sorry,
Surakarta.
say again. Your name, please.
Sri Slamet.
Sri Slamet.
Okay. I have questions and this are addressed to Professor Mustafa and also Professor Lawrence.
Okay.
It cannot be denied that the development of technology grows rapidly. But by the way, I ever read a book, it was around 10 years ago. It was said that there will be a certain plan dealing with transforming human soul. Transforming human soul. In that article, it said that human soul from one body could be transformed to the other body. My questions are that, does such kinds of imagination will be true? And then the second, does the technology also copy this news? And the last is, how does it work? Thank you very much.
So, the same question for the both speakers?
Yes.
Okay. Please, Pak Mustafa. Okay. Excuse me. Could you please repeat the points of your question, please? Okay, maybe in Indonesia. You want to speak in Indonesia?
Yeah. Ada satu fenomena yang 10 tahun yang lalu bahwa ternyata sudah ada rencana untuk pemindahan soul, human soul, apa jiwa, ruh manusia, ruh manusia dari satu badan ke badan yang lain.
Okay.
Nah, berkenan dengan teknologi yang sekarang ini sudah canggih, mungkinkah hal itu terjadi?
Okay.
Apakah di teknologi sekarang ini sudah menyentuh hal itu? Karena saya membaca artikelnya itu sekitar 10 tahun yang lalu. Terima kasih.
Oke. Dengan teknologi.
Thank you. Thank you, Bu Sri. Very interesting question. Right. Actually, that involves the psychology as well as the physiology of the human being. It is very difficult to transfer or to transplant the so-called soul, which is very impossible. To me, it is impossible. Because there was research long time ago done by European people, European scientists. How does soul goes out from your body? You see? And very unfortunate, they came up with a failure. And today, even though we have the current technology, science and technology, we can afford to the so-called transplant or transfer soul from one body to another. It is impossible. I don't think so. But if you mix up between the DNAs like a pig and human, and that's happened. However, the scientists, all scientists are decided not to continue this kind of research because this one is humiliate the so-called humanity's concept of living. Am I answer your question? Okay.
Okay, thank you. And Professor Lalon, please.
That's a huge question. Thanks a lot. Okay. A really interesting question, and I've actually written a couple of papers, published papers about that question in particular. So some time ago, I was motivated to ask that question in particular, and I did some research with some Buddhist people and some Christian people, and it was in relation to artificial intelligence. And some of the answers were very interesting, and it led to a whole lot of debates around what it is that makes us human. And is the soul necessary? Is it the spirit? And all those sorts of things. And it raises some very big ethical questions because if we produce artificial intelligence, which does all those things that humans do and does them better, then what is it that makes us human? So it's a very, very important question. And there was a person in the United Nations for Human Rights about 5 or 6 years ago. He said it is time that we start answering that particular question.
Okay.
Another example of that is the use of autonomous robots for war. And this year, that question came up again. And people like Bill Gates and some very, very high-profile people entered that debate. And so the question is, do we continue to develop artificial intelligence? Do we continue to develop robotisation to such an extent where we have military machines that autonomously kill human beings? So, number one, I can't answer your question. Okay, I can't answer the question. There has been some research done on the notion of the mind, and the question is, where is the mind? Okay, and there is some research that says people can have experiences where they can transfer their mind into another thing, and it's all a bit strange. But good question. I don't have an answer, but it's a fascinating area of research.
Okay. Thank you. Then we proceed to the third question from, please, microphone, please, provided.
Thank you. Dedi Sugiarto from Trisakti University, Jakarta. I would like to ask to Professor Mustafa. I want to ask about the relationship about offset theory with the multivariate statistical analysis. Yeah? If we do discriminant analysis, for example, to evaluate the output, sometimes we see the misclassification result atau classification accuracy. So if we compare to the rough set theory or other decision tree analysis for generating classification, is it a better result for accuracy or no? And then the second question, if we do the future research, is there an opportunity to combine or to do research about the multivariate analysis and then rough set theory? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Dadi, and Professor Mustafa, please. It's about competency with big data and Pak Dadi.
Pak Dadi, yeah. Thank you. It's a good question. Right. There were papers published by NAFSET people, especially from Vietnam, and a group of people from Pollex group discuss on decision tree and offset theory. Recently, we managed to get the decision tree concept to discuss on what is the meaning of decision tree actually. Decision tree coming from in Quran, halal in hadis, wal halal mubayyin wal haram mubayyin and wal bainahuma, itu yang kesamaran. So this kind of concept is embedded in this kind of people, right? And they came up with the so-called decision tree theory. Decision tree theory, you cannot run away from the so-called upset theory. Why? Because this is the so-called uncertainty decision comes in. When we talk about uncertainty, and you can use the rough set theory or the decision tree concept, or might be even rough set or even soft set, even fuzzy. But the most popular one is fuzzy. However, fuzzy is already discussed long time ago, right? and until today fuzzy is still alive. If we study on several papers on fuzzy, there is the so-called the intuitionistic fuzzy logic, which is the combination between subset and the fuzzy. However, the rough set also one of the techniques that we use in order to improve the accuracy as well as the efficiency. See? So if you combine these three, rough set, decision tree, and the subset, you might come up with a new approach. And hopefully, your approach becomes reality. You see? This is a good idea. And this discipline cannot stand by itself, might be for 10 years' time. And therefore, we have to combine with other things, such as in other heuristic approach. So please do research on this one and do combine or hybrid rough set or decision tree theory to other disciplines or to other theory as well. Hopefully you can come up with a new good approach. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Mustafa. We close to the end, but I saw someone raising his hand, so I give one more questioner, please. That one. The gentleman, please.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Hello, I'm Ripto from Gajah Mada University. I have question.
Sorry, what is your name again?
Sorry, Ripto. I'm Ripto.
Repto.
Ripto.
Okay. Pak Repto.
I have question for Professor Lawrence, Mr. Lawrence. Sorry. With technological development, digital agent make increase people lazy, make decrease mental health, and make dependency with technology. Can Baudrillard can help it? Because I'm not currently about Baudrillard. And for Professor Mustafa, what is strengths and weakness if we using Rockset? Can we implementation Rockset for all of incomplete information system? And can we implementation for recovery database? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pak Repto. And then Professor Lawrence, please. Okay.
Thanks very much for your question. You know, Baudrillard is what we call a post-structuralist sociologist. And post-structuralist sociologists are very, very good at identifying the problems, not so good at providing the answers or the solutions. And so part of my work in relation to computer hacking is in fact about seeing whether Baudrillard's thesis is in fact workable. Does it in fact explain things? I'd like to think it does, but one of the limitations of Baudrillard is he really doesn't provide us with too many answers or solutions or things that we can put in place to test his theory. So he's a little bit limited in that aspect. So I hope to be able to find out a little bit more about the validity of his ideas in the research I'm doing. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And Professor Mustafa, please.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting. It seems that you are very much interested on rough set theory.
Okay.
Right. The merit for the rough set, basically rough set is the alternative of fuzzy logic. They have the same functionality. However, for those who are interested in rough set, they are very much easier as compared to fuzzy. That is one. Another one, in terms of approximation and also the accuracy, the rough set come up with a high accuracy as well as approximation. But the demerit for the rough set theory is the efficiency or the time required in order to complete the job is not as good as compared to fuzzy. That is the so-called the demerit for the rough set theory. Definitely you can apply rough set theory to the database, especially to the relational database, right? Currently we are working on the middle size of data, because the small size of data, the rough set theory seems that it is performing, right? But what about the middle size of the data and also the huge data? So currently we are working on the middle size of data, like a 1 terabyte, might be up to, up to 100 terabytes, but not to hexabyte or not to zettabyte. See, because we do not know either our approach is good or not, or applicable or not, right? And you can work with the categorical data, not only on the numbers data, but also to categorical data. You can also think of the subset as well. You can even combine the rough set and the fuzzy, also rough set and the subset, also rough set and the fuzzy. So it's up to the problems actually. Some problems can easily be solved by rough set theory, but not all problems be solved by rough set theory. Okay? So we need more reading. But if you want to know more details on rough set, you can send your email. You send to me through my email. You know my email? Yeah, I can give it to you after this.
Okay.
So hopefully, just to inform you, we have one Indonesians who are good in rough set theory. You just type the name. The name is Tutut Herawan. He did his PhD and completed in 2011 under my supervision. Now he is very internationally well known throughout the world, and he is formerly from Universitas Ahmad Dahlan, Surakarta.
Okay.
The second one is Dr. Banahan Daga. He's here now from Universitas Muhammadiyah. He's working on subset theory, even the introducing fuzzy. You can easily discuss with him, right? And we have two currently from Indonesia, and we have many from other countries working on rough set as well as subset theory, which is very interesting topic. Even though some people are not interested to do that because they are too mathematical.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Mustafa. Thank you, Pak Ripto, for the question. I still saw some of you raising your hand, but unfortunately, our time for this session is up. So I would like to close this session by thanking all of you, for the speaker, Professor Lawrence, Professor Mustafa, and for all of the participants. And thank you for joining us here. And we still have some discussion. And if you have any question, you can have a discussion maybe in the break time with Professor Lawrence or Professor Mustafa. Even you can have their email if you want to follow up this discussion. Thank you and have a nice day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And the time, I turn over back to Dr. Happy, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Nurgiatna. Okay, now it's giving away a token of appreciation. For this purpose, we would like to request Professor Bambang Setiaji to give a token of appreciation to both of our keynote speakers today. Okay, that's the end of the first session of today's program. Right now it's time for lunch break.